When I was a senior in high school, I knew exactly what my future held. I was going to major in Spanish and Latin American Studies at George Mason University. I was going to spend some time in the Peace Corps because it was the late 60s and that's what you did. And then I was going to come back here and teach for a long time and a happy time at a bilingual elementary school, J.F. Oyster, over in D.C. And that summer I met Jim, and everything changed. Jim was an ex-Marine. For those of you who do not understand the difference between a Marine and an ex-Marine, he was cordially invited to find other employment at the height of the Vietnam War, so you know he really screwed up. But he was also the oldest of 4 kids who were sent to a foster home in upstate New York when their mother was committed to the New York State Mental Institution. We're talking about prime husband material here. And I was smitten because I was 18 and I was stupid. My mother tried to tell me, this is not a good idea. And I said, I'm 18, I can get married whether you think it's a good idea or not. She said, fine. But we did. We had a nice little wedding. We had a reception, a picnic reception in the backyard, and went home to our apartment. Ooh, I was so excited, and everything was going to be wonderful, and we were going to be so happy. It lasted a couple of months. I found out that my dream husband had a tremendous fondness for drinking a lot and drugging a lot. Neither of those were things that I had any particular interest in. But because I loved him so much, and I knew he would eventually change for me, I hung in there. Y'all are believing me here. But he realized that I really did not like how he was spending his time. So he started doing all his partying somewhere else. And he would come home to swap out his laundry, occasionally pay a bill, and make sure that I was still there and that all his stuff was still there. Eventually, while I was at work one day, he moved out to live in an apartment with another woman where I could see their bedroom from my bedroom window. The guy was all class. And I don't think he planned this. I think it just worked out that way, but it didn't make it hurt any less. So being 18, almost 19 at this point, I spent a lot of time going from crying hysterically to so depressed, crying hysterically. Eventually that settled down and I started thinking about what had happened, because I actually did have some functioning brain cells. I just had been kind of overcome by this guy. And I loved him so much, I wanted to try again. I wanted to be sure that if it didn't work, I had done everything that I could. So I met him one day, accidentally, at the local tavern, not unlike this place. I just happened to see him across the room, and I walked over to him and I said, I've made some decisions. And he looked at me like, you made decisions? I said, yeah. You can either move home this week, or I will cancel the lease and file for a divorce, and you'll never hear from me again. So make it simple, a simple cut. He was back home the next day. He also moved out of that apartment during the workday so that she didn't see him living. Consistently classy. And that was okay for a few weeks. But then he started to get back into his old habits. He would snuggle up in the chair with his bong in one arm and his bottle of whatever he was drinking that night in the other. And that would be how we would spend our evenings. And even at 18 and in love, I was really pretty bored by that, to say nothing of I was getting just a little irked by the whole thing, because here I'd given him this opportunity, and he just didn't seem to have any interest in doing anything with it. He was still working, which was something, and I was working full time. And I came home one day on a blistering hot summer day, And all I could think about when I blasted in the front door was, I've got to have some ice water. So I went to the freezer, and this is in the non-frost free days. So use ice pick to break into the freezer, open it up, and there was this plastic bag in there with what looked like a green brick in it. And I took it, yeah, somebody knows what it is. I took it out, and I looked at it, and it was, in fact, a kilo of what we used to call Georgetown tobacco. Seeds, stems, leaves, and buds of pure 1970s cannabis sativa. And I blew up. And I took the bag into the bathroom, and I proceeded to break up the brick and give it a burial at sea. A little bit of time. And shortly after I was through, I went into the kitchen and started fixing dinner. Well, Jim comes in the door, and he's also hot, and he's ready for a little something to brighten up his day, and he opens up the freezer. And there's silence. And he turned around to me and he said, "Where is it?" "What?" "You know what I mean." "Oh, it's somewhere in the sewer system at this point." "What?" I said, "Well, I flushed it." "You did what?" And he turned around. And now, mind you, this guy was 6'4", weighed about 250 pounds, and he pulled his fist back. Note to gentlemen in the room, never threaten to attack a woman in her own kitchen. Because I reached over to the drawer next to the stove, and I pulled out the biggest, shiniest, sharpest knife I had. And I looked him in the eye and said, "You better knock me out, because if I can get up, I will hurt you like you have never been hurt before." And this great big 6 foot, whatever inch monster looked at me, and I could watch the yellow line forming, turn around, beat feet out of the house. He called me back, it's probably 2 hours, which was okay because I'd settled down by then. He says, "I'm not going to be home tonight." Actually, "Oh, and where is home for you these days?" "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "You don't live here anymore. I want you to come and get your shit, and I don't care where you take it. Why don't you move back into the apartment that I can see from the bedroom window, and then I'll know where you are?" Long silence. "Well, what do you mean? Am I using words that are too long for you?" "You don't live here anymore. I want you to come and get your stuff. Because if you don't come and get it, it will be waiting for you at the free store down by the dumpster in a week. You got a week." He came and got his stuff the next day while I was at work. And life was okay for about 4 years. And then he called me. Some men just don't get it. They just don't get it. And I know most men are smarter than this. But he had this idea that it would be a good idea to come over for a connubial visit. "Oh, you want to come visit? I don't think that would be a good idea, but you know I was just thinking about you." "Oh, yeah?" "Yeah, the toilet backed up, and I remembered that I helped you learn how to fix a toilet, and that's just, you were the first thing that came to mind when this stuff came gushing out of the toilet." God, Erin, you are such a bitch. And I just, you don't know the half of it. "Jim, everything I am today, I owe to you. Thanks a lot. And don't call back."